Shrub scans.
What?
Snake Bros.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, angels, demons, and monsters, and serpents, to Brothers of the Serpent podcast, coming to you not live from the 10 by 10 by 10 tangent cube of science, nestled amongst the dusty bones of an ancient seabed high atop the Edwards Plateau. We have new equipment in here. What is that? The Focusrite Claret
83X interface.
It's not Claret.
No. We're getting ready to lay down an album, ladies and gentlemen.
That's right.
$50 Dynasty.
That thing is it's beautiful,
Yeah.
but its interface is not.
No.
Yeah, it's too bad.
But it's going to be great.
Yeah. So hopefully this is sounding good because Kyle has just set all this up, and we're trying out this new equipment. How much is that thing? Give us a round number.
I don't remember.
Okay. Pretty expensive.
Well, yeah.
Well, you don't have to look it up. I was just thinking you could say like $4,000 or something.
No,
like that.
it's not that much.
Okay. But it's not like $200
No,
either.
it's not. It's way more than that.
All right, well, while Kyle's looking that up, without further ado, we introduce the Watcher, Mr. Brett England, from deep beneath his secret space station in secret outer space. He is actually here for this show. He was not here last time when we talked about a whole bunch of genetic stuff, and it would have been great to have him, but now he's here. Right, buddy? You're there?
1287.
1287, okay.
Yes, I'm here. I love the way you put that. You're like, whenever we have no use for him whatsoever and he's just taking up space, he's around. But the one time we need him, man. Yeah.
That's exactly what happened. For like the past 5 shows, we have not needed Watcher stuff at all. In fact, you were like really distracting on one show, showing us weird washers and then putting up weird pictures of Jackie Chan.
Yeah.
Your focus needs more focus. And then last show we're like, well, it'll be fine. Nope. We got into a whole bunch of stuff where we're like, man, we don't know what we're talking about. And it would be great if the Watcher was here. So we still have a lot of that material to go through. So I'm glad you're here, buddy, because you can help us out with that. We got some more genetic stuff. So
Looking forward to it.
Tell us about twisted snakes.
All right, what else we got? We got a one-up box. We're gonna do that first.
Yeah, we got a one-up box here, and this really is
an actual one-up box. Yeah, it is a 6 by 6 by 6 inch cube,
tangent cube,
that has one up written on the side of it.
That's freaking awesome.
So Kyle is knifing the box as we speak.
At least it doesn't have a question mark on it.
One up. Where's our one up sound effect?
Oh, yeah, I forgot to get that.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
All right, now we got bubble wrap.
Can't see the tape. Don't want to cut myself open here.
Yeah,
with my
yeah.
Knife.
Don't want to cut open the content either.
Oh, a stony piece of
Oh,
olivine.
wow, it's a pyramid.
That is freaking awesome.
That is beautiful. Is it made
It's
out
like
of
a green
Is it like marble? Oh man, this is awesome.
Dude, somebody sent us straight to pyramid. Wait, somebody sent pyramids straight to us.
Yeah. You guys can't go to pyramids yet, so here's a pyramid for you. Man, this is beautiful.
Yeah.
Trying to find out who it's from. I'm pretty sure it's from Brandon. History shift.
Well,
I recognize his handwriting.
Whoever the stony pyramid is from, thank you.
God,
It's beautiful.
This is freaking beautiful, people. I wonder what it's made of. Wow, that's really awesome. All right.
It looks kind of green, but everything in here is green.
Yeah, everything is in here is kind of green because the walls and ceiling are painted green, a dark green. So it makes everything else have a greenish tint.
It feels more magical in the room now.
That's right. It does. We have a black pyramid staring at us next to the Sands of Time on the desk. So thank you. I'm pretty sure that was from Brandon. So thanks, Brandon. If it was not, sorry to whoever sent it, and thank you. If you guys want us, you want to send us stuff, we do have a P.O. box. So get a hold of us by email or on Twitter. You can email us, brothersoftheserpent@gmail.com, and I will send you the P.O. box, and you can send us swag like this. But just make sure if you do send us stuff to put some kind of something in there so we know who it's from. Like you could write a little note on the inside and stick it in there just with your username or whatever, however we know you or however you want to be mentioned on the show, and we will do that. So
Yeah.
but
You could have a one-time throwaway alias
that's right.
just for your package.
That's right. just say it. My one-time throwaway alias for this package is blah blah blah. His cheese maker. All right. I have. Oh wait, I was supposed to have space weather news. That's what I'm
Did you
supposed to
forget
have.
about space weather
I
news?
completely, yeah. So my phone died, and I had to factory reset it.
My finger has been hovering over this
Yeah,
button.
sorry about that. I'm like, what are we supposed to do after introducing the watcher? Oh yeah, it's space weather news. Let me pull this up real quick.
How can you forget about space weather news?
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's usually right there.
I
when
thought you were going to try to go without space weather news, and I was going to be like,
Hell no.
No, not space weather. Okay, spaceweather.com.
I have some space news. If it's taking you too long.
Okay, I've got it pulled up. Without further ado, space weather news from spaceweather.com. The next solar wind stream, a hole in the sun's atmosphere, is facing Earth, and it is spewing a stream of solar wind in our direction. Estimated time of arrival, July 19th through 20th. Minor geomagnetic activity and high latitude auroras are possible when the gaseous material arrives. Also, cosmic ray update, new results from the moon. Note to astronauts, 2019 is not a good year to fly into deep space. In fact, it is shaping up to be one of the worst of the space age. One of the deepest solar minima of the past century is underway now. As the sun's magnetic field weakens, cosmic rays from deep space are flooding into the solar system, posing potential health risks to space travelers. NASA is monitoring the situation with a radiation sensor in lunar orbit. The Cosmic Ray Telescope for the Effects of Radiation, or CRATER, very clever there, guys, has been circling the moon on NASA's Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter spacecraft, the LRO, since 2009. Researchers have just published a paper in this journal, Space Weather. Ooh, there's a journal called Space Weather. This is cool. Describing CRATER's latest findings. The overall decrease in solar activity in this period has led to an increased flux of energetic particles to levels that are approaching those observed during the previous solar minimum in 2009 to 2010, which was the deepest minimum of the space age, write the authors, led by Carrie Zeitlin of NASA's Johnson Space Flight Center.
Johnson?
That's probably not a good... Don't launch anything from there. Obviously, that one came from the Johnson Space Center. The data have implications for human exploration of deep space. This always happens during solar minimum. As the solar activity goes down, cosmic rays go up. The last two solar minima have been unusually deep, leading to high cosmic ray fluxes in 2008, 2010, and again in 2018, 2019. These are the worst years since humans first left Earth in the 1960s. The latest data from CRATER show cosmic ray fluxes almost doubling since 2019, and there's a graph here that definitely shows doubling. It's a bit counterintuitive, says one of the authors, Nathan Schwadron, a space physicist at the University of New Hampshire. Solar minimum may actually be more dangerous than solar maximum. In their paper, Zeitlin, Schwadron, and co-authors describe an interesting experiment by NASA that highlights the relative peril of solar flares versus cosmic rays. In 2011, NASA launched the Curiosity rover to Mars. Inside its spacecraft, the rover was protected by about as much shielding as a human astronaut would have. A radiation sensor tucked inside kept track of Curiosity's exposure. The results were surprising. During the 9-month journey to Mars, radiation from solar flares, including the strongest flare of the previous solar cycle, accounted for only about 5% of Curiosity's total dose. The remaining 95% came from cosmic rays. As 2019 unfolds, solar minimum is still deepening. Cosmic rays haven't quite broken the space age record set in 2009-2010, but they're getting close, only percentage points from the highest values CRATER has ever recorded. No one can predict what will happen next, says Schwadron. However, the situation speaks for itself. We have to be prepared for strong cosmic rays.
Man. Nothing
90
about the Van Allen belts in there.
95% of its total radiation dose came from the universe at large as opposed to the sun.
Yeah. Yeah, we need them sunstorms.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So all that stuff is hitting us right now too.
Yeah, but we at least have like our little shield.
Yeah, but cosmic rays don't.
They don't care.
No. You need solar flux, outgoing solar flux to block those things. The solar wind.
Yeah, but I mean, they're getting diffused in the atmosphere, right?
Yeah. So they come in and they cause this giant Christmas tree of collisions,
Right.
which is what causes, that's what
This
causes.
is like it's a similar to like nuclear reactions, right? That's
right.
what's happening.
Particle accelerators
Yeah.
is what's happening. It
Smack
comes in
in the
as-
nucleuses or
Right.
nuclei of these particles in the
and
atmosphere.
it breaks them up and they hit other ones.
They decay into various different things that smash into other ones. And,
Right. That's right. And so
Man,
when
what
you,
if one went straight through and like nailed some plutonium underground or something?
yeah. Well, I mean, it cosmic rays are generally considered to be. No one actually knows because you can't really check. But the idea is that they're massy, heavy particles that are coming in hot, like at 99.99999% of light speed. But because they have mass to start with, like they're neutrons and protons, right? So somewhere out there, that's a giant supernova. And in some places in the supernova, there are areas where, like, obviously a supernova will break atoms completely apart. So you end up with a chunk of a nucleus of an atom. Say it's like 4 protons and a couple of neutrons around there. That's all that's left. All the electrons are gone. The whole rest. So it's just that piece, and those are massy particles. Mm-hmm. They have mass, unlike an electron or a photon, which are supposedly massless.
Yeah.
So they move at light speed automatically. Well, these have mass, and yet the explosion strength from the star's detonation hits that one hardest, and it kicks it out from the star at like 99.999999% of light speed. So it comes in with the same. They were saying that some of them come in with the same energetic value of a fastball thrown at 90 miles an hour. Now think about
Yeah, something that small.
having that much kinetic energy.
And I can't really think about something that small because it's too
It's
small.
too
for me
small
to think about.
So when it comes in and it hits the upper atmosphere, it causes this enormous chain reaction. Like
It's amazing to me that something could travel that freaking far without already running into something else.
Right. So most of them do hit stuff on the way here, but obviously, these things are everywhere out in the universe.
They're just all over the place.
They're all over the place because stars are blowing up and
Yeah,
there's
so the
quasars.
probability
And,
is that you're going to get something.
right. Yeah, there's cosmic rays raining across the universe all the time. Just all the time. But the sun, normally when it's high in activity, its outgoing solar flux causes the helio sheath around the entire solar system, where basically that's where the outgoing solar flux, it becomes equal in energy level to the incoming universal flux. And so there's this sort of shield where those two things cancel each
So is
other
the solar
out.
flux an actual?
It's wind.
Is it solid particles and stuff? Like
Yeah.
it's actual. Okay.
Yeah, and massless particles too, but it's
Right.
like highly energetic shit. All the electromagnetic spectrum plus actual plasma
Massy
stuff,
particles.
massy particles coming out, and then
So that's why the cosmic rays are coming in and they're going to hit some of that stuff and
right
decay.
And
or
so it blocks
Slow
blocks
down.
most of it. But when the sun's activity drops way down, more cosmic rays get through.
So is this going to be a problem for us ever trying to leave the solar system?
Yeah. So
Once we get out of that helio sheath or
yes,
whatever you're
then you're
calling
in the
it?
hard radiation of the universe at large, and it's bad. So like the sun's radiation is totally deadly, but not nearly as deadly as once you get out of the helio sheath. And so the Voyager probes. This is, remember, like in, I don't know, 2011 or 12, when everyone was sort of like, have they left the solar system yet? And they were like, maybe it has, maybe it hasn't. They were talking about this with the Voyager probes. They were way out there, and they were like, maybe it's left it. But what they were trying to measure was when did they cross the helio sheath,
Okay.
right, and get out into the actual universe. Where, that's like the helio sheath is like, you are now leaving the limits of
It's kind
solar
of like
system.
the town wall.
That's right.
You finally go outside the city gates.
That's right.
And you're like, I'm in the outer world.
That's right. Yeah.
Now your quest begins.
That's right. You better get something better than that wooden sword.
That's right. I was going to say this.
Been playing too much Zelda.
I know. Go find the Master Sword quickly.
So yeah, because solar minimum is. Oh, and let me find out what the numbers are here.
Yeah, I want to know what the proton density is.
Okay,
man.
proton density has gone up 3.0 protons per cubic centimeter. But the solar wind speed is way down, 399.9 kilometers per second.
Oh man, that's really bad.
Yeah.
You need the wind speed up if you're going to have high proton density.
That's right. That's right. So I'm just completely assuming this, making this up in my head, but I assume that a higher proton density but lower solar wind speed will shrink the heliosheath in total. Like the faster the higher the proton density and the wind speed, it'll expand.
Mm-hmm.
So this is why they were questioning: did it cross it yet? Did they cross it yet? Because it's constantly fluctuating.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I just like to attribute proton density and solar wind speed to the way I feel outside. Today I left work early. I was just like, no, it's so bad outside.
Yeah.
And I was pretty sure it was because there was no solar wind and the proton density was high.
That's exactly what's happening.
All right, I got some space news.
Okay, good.
This is from space.com, Space's website.
Oh yeah.
Surprise! This monster black hole's disk shouldn't exist. And this was sent by Ty. Thanks, Ty, for the story. Hubble observed this unexpected pairing at the center of a spiral galaxy. Astronomers have discovered a thin disk of material spiraling into a supermassive black hole in a very faint galaxy, an unexpected finding that may provide further clues to the dynamic processes surrounding the black holes. Using the Hubble Space Telescope, astronomers observed the black hole at the center of the spiral galaxy NGC 3147, which is located around 130 million light-years away in the Draco constellation. Black holes in low-luminosity galaxies like NGC 3147 usually lack sufficient material captured by the galaxy's gravity to feed off of and are therefore considered starving, Hubble scientists said in a statement. The researchers were surprised to find a thin disk encircling the black hole at the center of this galaxy because the disk looks similar to the kinds of accretion disks that typically encircle black holes found in extremely active and much brighter galaxies. Quote, the type of disk we see is a scaled-down quasar, in brackets, a luminous galactic nucleus, that we did not expect to exist. Stefano Bianchi, an astrophysicist professor at Roma Tre University in Italy and lead author of the study, said in a statement. It's the same type of disk we see in objects that are 1,000 or even 100,000 times more luminous. The disk is so deeply embedded in the black hole's gravitational field, according to the study, that the light being emitted from the gas disk is altered by the intense gravitational pull. Hubble measured the disk spinning around the black hole at more than 10% of the speed of light, causing it to brighten as it moves toward Earth and dim when it moves away from our planet.
Wow.
This process is known as relativistic beaming, whereby relative effects alter the luminosity of matter moving at speeds close to the speed of light. This is an intriguing peek at a disk very close to a black hole, Bianchi said. So close that the velocities and the intensity of the gravitational pull are affecting how we see the photons of light. Scientists can use these observations to test Albert Einstein's theories of relativity, which explain how gravity can warp light as the light coming from the center of the disk appears warped. The resulting distorted images we see could provide unique insights to the way light and matter behave so close to a black hole, according to the statement. The team behind the study had originally picked this galaxy to observe in order to validate known models of low-luminosity active galaxies with starving black holes at their center. But NGC 3147 defied those models, and now scientists are on the hunt to find other similar accretion disks surrounding these malnourished black holes in low-luminous galaxies. The predictions of current models for very faint active galaxies clearly failed, Bianchi said. So,
Wow.
I
love the idea that it's moving so fast that when they're coming around from the backside of the black hole towards us, it gets brighter. It's like, and then it goes around, whips around, and then goes this way and dims out.
Yeah.
Like, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So let me see if I can reproduce that effect. It's like, like that.
Yeah. I'll have to turn the smashing compressor off for that to have an effect. I'm joking.
Does that sound right, Watcher? Okay, Watcher's giving us some Watcher math here. He says 4 protons having the inertia of a 90-mile-per-hour fastball is a relative increase of the mass by a factor of 2.17 times 10 to the 25th power. That's a big deal.
Yep, lol.
Okay, man, that was cool. I wonder why it has that much material going around it when it's supposedly supposed to be a...
Yeah, so another story that I read multiple publications on it. This one didn't address it. I actually didn't read this entire story. I just liked the way it was written. The first one I read was terribly written. I was imagining reading it on the show and stumbling all over the way it was written.
Oh, yeah.
But they were actually talking about how the scientists are thinking they can use this to test both of Einstein's theories of relativity. Like this is sort of like, they're looking at this going, wait a minute, how is this possible? Mm-hmm. One is the the general theory, and the other one is the special theory.
Right, yeah. The special theory is the first one that came out.
Yeah.
General came out 10 years later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can't remember what the other thing was, but yeah, basically that's the big question is how can it have this much stuff around it, but also be a starving black hole or whatever? It's like,
yeah,
it shouldn't have this much.
Right, it's from a dim galaxy that doesn't have a lot of material, supposedly, so how does it have an accretion disk?
Yeah.
It's funny they call them starving.
Yeah. Nom, 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 nom.
So you can't remember what the other thing they were going to test?
I'll go back to the first story.
No, that's all right. I have a...
But I want to know.
Yeah. We all want to know.
That story was very well written.
Yes, it was.
The
Yeah.
journalist is a good writer. Black holes are usually surrounded by a disk of star stuff and other matter that is pulled in by their immense gravity. But a black hole with that kind of stereotypical accretion disk can't possibly exist in the absence of certain conditions. Or so we thought. NASA's Hubble Space Telescope eyed a supermassive black hole lurking in the center of NGC 3147, a spiral galaxy 130 million light-years from Earth, which justified something scientists thought they knew about these already mysterious cosmic phenomena. This black hole just doesn't devour enough material for anything swirling around it to take the form of a disk, just a faintly glowing space donut at most. It even challenges Einstein's theories of general and special relativity. Just to backtrack, gravity is described as the curvature of space by general relativity, while special relativity explains the relationship between space and time. We've never seen the effects of both general and special relativity in visible light with this much clarity, said ESA's Marco Chiaberge, a member of the team that recently published this Hubble study in monthly notices of the Royal Astronomical Society. Why is this black hole even starved? There just isn't enough material floating around in GC 3147 for its gravitational forces to capture so it can feed, meaning there also isn't enough material for gravity to flatten it into a disk. That explains the space donut. These disks were previously thought to form only around more ravenous black holes that gorge themselves. This black hole might have the mass of 250 million suns, but that's nothing compared to some others out there. Astronomers used to think that, at least in the case of black holes that eat enough, immense amounts of gas trapped by a black hole's intense gravitational pull are supposed to form an accretion disk, and that the matter headed for its gargantuan maw emits so much light that it forms a quasar. The team had ironically been using NGC 3147 to prove theories that suggested malnourished black holes could definitely not form a disk. Those are usually expected from objects anywhere from 1,000 to 100,000 times more luminous, which is why this find really threw the Hubble team. Is that becoming more clear now?
Yeah. Space disc is totally canceled. God.
They thought it was going to be a space donut.
Yeah.
But it turned out to be a space disk.
As soon as you said that,
That's great.
That song started going through my head, and I couldn't focus on the article at all. God damn it.
It's a great song. The Space Olympics.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you haven't heard that song, go listen to it.
Yeah,
Space
go look
Olympics.
Space Olympics by, what are they called? It's Andy Samberg.
Yeah. That'll find it.
Yeah. Space Swords, totally canceled.
The Lonely Island.
That's right. I'm sorry. I wanted to have intelligent commentary, but as soon as you said the disc, I was just like, first I started thinking that explains flat Earth, and then I was like, wait, space disc. So
That's what it is.
all right. I have a fantastic email here from, let's see how it's signed.
Hey, look, the Watcher's bragging that he didn't even have to look that up.
Yeah, Watcher knows all the pop culture references. So, of course he didn't. So this one is from John Jones.
What is this?
This is an email. Listener communication.
How's it going, Johnson Jones?
Of course, this is an email from a Johnson. All right. It says Solid Gold Podcast is the header. Kyle and Russ, I found your podcast by searching for Breakaway Civilization after hearing Alex Jones's drunken rant on the Joe Rogan Experience about a secret breakaway civilization and interdimensional aliens. That was, I'd say, about 3 months ago. Since then, I have listened to every episode, and it quickly became my all-time favorite podcast.
Oh, my gosh.
It is the quirks and the ranting that I really like, especially when Kyle mispronounces like every ethnic word. I literally laugh out loud.
Wait, what?
My favorite is Delhi, like New Delhi, but Kyle pronounces it like Delhi instead of Delhi. Or the ancient god Athoth as Tahoti. Ha 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 ha. That is solid gold, bros. Solid gold. Seriously, keep that shit coming. It's hilarious. Anyway, as far as people's teeth getting ground down by eating sand and corn every day, I can tell you that that's actually a thing. We have a house in southern Mexico, and we go down there from time to time on vacay. Well, in Oaxaca, I don't know how to say this one, sorry.
You're doing it again.
Yeah, Oaxaca?
You blaming the wrong guy, man.
There are tons of native Mayan people, and the old ladies have all these little nub teeth. No shit. They eat homemade corn tortillas for every meal, and they grind the corn with a mortar and pestle, so not only does the bowl get way worn down with time, I think it's actually just eating rough ground corn for every meal of their life that does it, because they keep those mortar and pestles for generations down there. It's pretty common to see one in every single home, and most of them are very old and have the story of how it used to belong to the grandmother and whatnot. So it's not like they're grinding the stone into sand like immediately or anything. Those things last literally for ages. I drive a truck over the road, so I listen to podcasts and audiobooks all day, every day. I look up topics that I'm interested in, and I try to read and listen to everything that I can find on it. And since I started listening to your podcast, I have been finding everything I can find on our esoteric human origins, ancient civilizations, and extraterrestrials. Thanks for kind of filling in all those topics in one show. That's pretty damn cool. I just watched the film Unacknowledged and Sirius, both by Dr. Stephen Greer, and I ate it all up. Have you guys thought about possibly interviewing him or going over some of the topics he talks about in his movies? Also, I always thought you were called the Brothers of the Serpent podcast because Inky was branded a serpent from Enlil, and you guys were like, yeah, we're with Inky because he's not a complete asshole alien, unlike you, Enlil.
That's also right.
Totally right. P.S. I know it's actually Russ that mispronounces all the words. I said Kyle up there just to fuck with you, Kyle.
Oh,
LOL.
you freaking Johnson.
Snake Bro John Jones.
He knows me.
He's okay. The Watcher says Oaxaca is pronounced like Oaxaca. So yeah, I
knew that.
I do.
Man, you got me, Johnson.
So yes, I have a long history, more so than Kyle, of mispronouncing things on this podcast, and I fully admit it. But
we always joke about that because I never read anything, so Russ knows a lot more than me. But I listen to everything, so I know how to pronounce stuff.
That's right. So my thing is when I'm reading something and I come across a word that I haven't seen before, I just go with it grammatically.
Yeah.
English grammar rules are what I use to pronounce it. So like Oaxaca looks like Oaxaca.
Yeah.
But it's pronounced Oaxaca, so they should spell it like Oaxaca if they want me to pronounce it correctly.
Yeah.
So like New Delhi, has a totally inappropriate H in it. That if it was not in there, I would say it correctly.
First, I was thinking when you brought up the Delhi thing that I was talking about the pillar of
Delphi.
Yeah, and I called it Delhi.
Yeah.
I called it Delhi or
Yeah, I called it. You said Delphi, and I was like, no, I think it's Delhi. And then Watcher was like, no, it's Delhi. Like, you're both totally wrong.
Oh, you mean like sandwiches?
Yeah. So yes, since I read stuff, whenever I come across things, I just go with the phonetic pronunciation or the grammatical.
I've just ever since we started,
And Kyle will often correct me because he's like, no, it's actually like this because he hears people say it because he's
Yeah.
listening to him. So
I've decided though with the names, like the personal pronoun,
Yeah.
or, the names.
yeah.
Since we're reading these news stories, it's just like when the name's coming up, I just plow through it as fast as I can and then just stick with whatever that turned out to be.
Just plow through it. Yeah. But I do want to. Okay, so the thing about Thoth is that is the
He's
Hellenistic.
gonna nail you, Johnson.
Well, if that's the Hellenistic or Greek or Ptolemaic period version of that god's name, Thoth, Thoth, or Thoth, depending on how some people say it. But the actual ancient Egyptian, let's see, I'll look it up here. I had it pulled up, of course, but my phone died. So I can read some of this from the wiki. Let's see. I have it here. Yeah, thank you. So, Thoth, borrowed from Coptic, the reflex of ancient Egyptian DHWTJ. That is the... So when you look at it, if you go on Wikipedia, you see Thoth, but the ancient Egyptian is DHWTJ. Okay? Many forms as ibis head. So let's see. Name. Etymology. The Egyptian pronunciation of DHWTJ, and also the D is always underlined every time they have it, so that may have some kind of significance. I'm not sure. There's also a dot under the H whenever they have it written down. So DH, underline D, dot under the H, WTY is how they write it. Is
WTJ.
Not, right. So the Egyptian pronunciation of this is not fully known, but may be reconstructed as Dahoti, perhaps pronounced Tahoti or Sahoti. This reconstruction is based on the ancient Greek borrowing Thoth or Tut, Theut, and the fact that the name was transliterated into Sahidic Coptic variously as a whole bunch of things of characters I don't know how to say. Anyway, these spellings reflect known sound changes from earlier Egyptians, such as the loss of the D palatization and merger of H with HIE, initial DH, TH, TH. So the loss of the Coptic. But anyway, so no one knows how to say it, so you can't actually mispronounce it. But the reason I always say both, Thoth or Thoth or Tahoti, is because Tahoti is the original Egyptian, actual ancient Egyptian name for that same being. That's his actual ancient name. Thoth or Thoth is a later epithet. So,
And you can kind of get Tahoti out of Thoth if you really try.
Yeah, if you really try. If you just pronounce all the words separately.
Pronounce the H's.
Yeah.
Tahoti.
T-O-T-Y. Yeah. So it's Dahoti or Dahudi is the possible way of pronouncing it, but no one knows how to pronounce it, so it's actually not possible to mispronounce. So in my defense, that's one word that I'm totally not effing up every time I say it. I'm trying to give his original name.
But hey, that's awesome, man.
But yeah, thank you.
You can do some hardcore deep dives on that with that job. I'm jealous.
Yeah. And the other thing he said that he wanted us to look at the Greer movies.
Yeah, I haven't seen any of
So
those.
we can do that. Watcher could probably do it. I don't know if they're on Netflix. We don't watch a whole lot of TV. But yeah, so the film's Unacknowledged and Serious, both by Dr. Stephen Greer. So we will take a look at that. We'll look into it.
I'll put them in my notes.
Yeah.
What else you got?
Oh, and also thank you for the whole stuff on the teeth. That was cool.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I got hung up on the fact that you were nailing me,
Falsely.
but it's
Unfairly.
It's I think he's got a point that just the chewing of the corn, like the
hard corn,
ground up corn.
Yeah.
It's like we use the thick cornmeal in our, like when we do fish fries and stuff.
Yeah.
And some of that stuff is like
Pretty gritty. Yeah. Pretty gritty.
So I can imagine if you're chewing that all the time, that could wear down your teeth.
Yeah.
Whereas his point about the boats, the metates or boat stones or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, they're in the family for generations. Is there really enough sand to grind down everybody's teeth and everybody's family in that one stone?
That's right.
I don't know about that.
Yeah. So basically,
point.
we were doubting that it was the rocks or the sand grinding down people's teeth, and he's saying you're probably right about that, but it's actually the cornmeal that they're eating that's grinding their teeth down.
Yeah.
Totally possible, man. Thank you. That's cool. Yeah, he said let's see. Yeah, tons of native Mayan people and the old ladies all have little nub teeth, which they see when they're down in southern Mexico on vacay.
Yeah. Also jealous about that.
Yeah. Hey, do you go to pyramids?
Yeah.
Okay. What else do I got here? Okay. So I know we're coming up on a break here, but I got one more thing from a listener. This is a new comment and rating on iTunes. So I want to read that one because it's good. Yeah. And once again, I had it pulled up a long time ago. Here we go. Yeah, thanks for the fill-in, buddy. So this is our 51st rating on iTunes. 5 stars from Yaya6363. It is titled Fascinating. Love this podcast. Easy to listen to. Always full of some combination of insane, amazing, unbelievable, mind-blowing topics that make you think about things in totally new and different ways. I find myself constantly trying to justify listening while I drive, during work, at home, everywhere, as I started back at 1 and am now absorbing as much as fast as I can. I am struggling to even justify any other podcast at the moment because I find myself wondering what the next episode holds and what new information will be discussed that I've never even heard of. Can't wait to be caught up because I feel like I'm seriously missing out until then. Do yourself a favor. Listen to a single episode. The topics are fascinating and seemingly endless. Awesome work, guys. Thank you for all the work y'all do. I feel like I'm able to learn about so many things through y'all due to all the work y'all put in. He's writing y'all, so I'm reading this correctly. Due to the work y'all put in, and I am grateful. This is the best podcast there is, and you, review reader, will be grateful you took the time to find that out.
Man, that's awesome.
That's a great review.
Thanks, Yaya.
Yeah. Thank you so much. All right. That is
Break time.
break time. Sticks!
Cue the music. And coming to you on a stony piece of olivine between the orbits of Mars and Jupiter, Brothers of the Serpent podcast in the 10 by 10 by 10 tangent cube, climate-controlled cube of science, with our new preamps. Man, it's just and our pyramid.
Yeah. Stuff stacking up in here. It's cool.
It's getting great.
So, Watcher, you had some interesting stuff. Did you want to come on and talk about that? The Coma stuff you were talking about? Give us the rundown of that stuff.
Yeah, sure.
All right.
That was
Let's hear it.
totally unexpected. All right.
I told you we were going to do it.
Yeah, but you didn't tell me when.
Yeah, during the podcast. I want to make sure we do it, so let's go ahead and
Right
knock it
on.
out.
Okay. So it all started. I read an article coming out of the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, where there was a woman who had been in a chemically induced coma after she was in a car hit by a bus. and she's in this coma for like 30 something years, right? When they chemically induce a coma, the reason they do it is to preserve the brain tissue from further damage as it swells. And oftentimes people will come back out of it. It keeps them from experiencing the severity of pain because they're all mangled. But there are times when somebody doesn't come back out of it and they just remain in a vegetative state. This woman was one of those in the coma for 30 something years. The doctors decide they're seeing like random firing of electrical activity, and they give her a sedative. What they actually gave her was Ambien, to try to calm those patterns. It was almost like to induce sleep. But what they did is they sedated her past the point of flatline brain activity, or which is essentially no electrical activity. And the result was she started to show organized brainwave spikes, and it was like nothing they had ever seen before. And
like, wait, like nothing they'd ever seen before on her, or period, like with anyone?
Like, period. It was observed one other time.
Okay, so this is not observed in anyone, even somebody who's not in a coma.
Right.
Okay.
And it's basically what it is it's this, they call it a nu complex, like the Greek letter nu, N-U.
All right.
And it originates in the hypothalamus, which is really interesting because the hypothalamus itself regulates hormone distribution. It regulates your body temperature. It's sort of the main regulator of your entire brain. And the only way that you can create this activity is you essentially have to shut all the rest of the brain off. You have to shut it up, for lack of a better term. And once you get it there, it starts pulsing. The hypothalamus starts sending out this electric pulse. And what ended up happening with this woman, and they were able to observe it the whole way through, is that electric pulse started to spread to other parts of the brain, and it propagated signal. And so it restored electrical activity to the brain. It's a lot like the way that we shock the heart back into rhythm, right? If you have the heart beating out of rhythm or it stops, you have to hit it with electricity across both sides so that it will begin to pump again. Right. And it's almost like the same thing that happened in the brain with her. I did some research on it, and it turns out there were like 3 or 4 other times where there's been documentation, once in South Africa, once in the United States, and the other one was in Eastern Europe, where they had given Ambien specifically to a coma patient who had been in a vegetative state for in excess of a decade, and they snapped back out of it.
So this woman in the story snapped back out of it. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
She woke up.
Right. And the article was incredibly frustrating to read because it was not a scientific article. I haven't been able to find one. It was just like a human interest story.
Yeah.
And the whole time I'm reading it, I'm like, well, do you have any pictures of the scans? Like, is there anything from the fMRI? Do you have the EKG, like the ECG? And no, they don't. But yeah, it's really interesting. To me, looking at it, it's almost like a beacon or a pulse that starts in the hypothalamus. Now, this is, this is going to be the non-scientific part of my thoughts, but it looks like it's like a homing beacon to pull consciousness back into the brain.
Oh, okay, I see. Yeah. So not only is it like in an electrical sense, it's like the starter spinning over on an engine.
Exactly.
But you're also pointing out that it's pulsing in such a way that the consciousness then returns to the body.
It's definitely the way that it seems.
Yeah.
With these eyes, for sure. Another really interesting thing about it in general is the fact that Ambien induces a hypnotic state.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's described, I've never taken it. It's described almost as like mescaline, where it's like being awake while dreaming.
Yeah, I've taken it, and yes, it's weird.
So if it induces something that is perceived in outward affect as a dreamlike state, or a trance of sorts, then that would also be chemically what it's mimicking in the brain. So you go into a sort of electrical trance-like state, and then suddenly you become a conduit for consciousness to return to you.
Yeah.
It's freaking fascinating.
That is cool.
Yeah, so we need to give the computers Ambien. And then
They will
they'll
wake up and kill us all.
That's fantastic.
So are they trying this method on other people? I mean, you probably don't know this because you, like you said.
As far as I've seen, it's not a thing that has started to, become common practice. Another really interesting thing about this woman is she was originally, the bus hit her car, a car she was in, and she threw herself over her 4-year-old son at the time, right? So she's like got him completely covered.
I did see that story, yeah.
Yeah, the bus hits her, and the son ends up being fine.
Right.
But she's all messed up, and she ends up in this coma. At the point where she came out of the coma, like where she started to twitch and like was able to make noise, there was a doctor shouting at her son in the room because they were having an argument. He was like, they're screaming at each other. So not only does she come back with this electrical activity, but it's sort of a mirror of her emotional state or her mindset. She's protecting her son. She's like, there's this guy yelling at him.
Yeah.
Right? Putting him in some sort of peril. And that's when she comes out of the coma. Like, really interesting. I mean, not a whole lot of things I can concretely say, but that's very interesting.
Right. So then you have have they yelled at each other before in her presence? Like, in other words, can you narrow it down? Say like it was actually the effects of this. And then there's the precursor. You said that she was having some kind of weird electrical activity and they were trying to dampen it by giving her Ambien.
Right.
So was that already a precursor to her waking up?
And it's difficult to say. Like I said, it was incredibly frustrating to read the article because there were a lot of questions. And I tried to find some sort of paper written on it or whatever in a scientific journal. And even with the other 3 cases, there hasn't really been too much in the way of scientific writing. And I'm thinking the main reason for that is because they have no effing clue.
Right.
Right. Like you can't write a paper if you have no theory and no conclusion other than gave her the pills and her brain came back. You can't really write it.
Yeah. But did the other ones also exhibit the ordered or however you called it, pulses the same?
Yes. Each time. Well, so with her and one other person in somewhere in New England, I don't remember exactly where, they were actually attached to monitors that were showing I don't know if it was an electroencephalogram or not, but essentially showing brainwave activity.
Yeah.
The guy in South Africa and the one in Eastern Europe were not. So there was no observation of the waves themselves. The one in New England, happened to have a neurologist who was just walking down a hallway, and he was familiar with the patient in this room, and out of the corner of his eye, he sees like these spikes in sequence, like almost like a sine wave sort of spiking of these brain waves. And he stops and he looks in and he's like, well, that's freaking weird. And he opens the door and he walks in and he's like, and he like hits the call button for a nurse and she comes running in and he's like, has anything changed with this patient? And and everybody starts freaking out and the guy's hand starts moving. Like, it's possible that in many coma patients over time, these new complexes have started, and for whatever reason, it's not taking. The other thing that's interesting about it is when you sedate brain activity, like you chemically induce a coma, once you hit flatline, right?
Yeah.
There's no reason why you would continue to add sedative. Why would you? Like you've quieted all the brain activity, like you've accomplished what you came here to do.
Yeah.
But these new complexes seem to appear, based on everything that we've observed so far, if you increase sedation past flatline.
Huh.
So it's almost like you have to convince the brain that it is dead or like reborn, or you have to go below brain dead.
Or that there is other activity that is not being seen by whatever we're using to read the brain activity, and that is actually quieted by quote unquote sedating past flatline. In other words, flatline is not really flatline.
Yeah.
And that is actually argued by the whole near-death experience thing. One of the main skeptical arguments about it is that there is actually brain activity that our monitors don't pick up that is responsible for the experiences of near-death experiences. So that when they see a flat line, there's actually some really subtle stuff still going on that our monitors aren't picking up. And so
I actually read an article recently where they managed to show in several cases repeat effect that at the point of quote unquote death, where you have full cardiac arrest,
yeah,
the brain is still firing.
Right.
So with regard to that, essentially consciousness persists past death.
Yeah, physical death, but it's not brain death yet. The
Right.
most interesting near-death experiences occur during brain death, where it's a complete flatline activity on the brain monitoring, and yet the person comes back with veridical experiences.
Yeah, and it's usually stuff like, so all of a sudden I was floating up and I looked down and I saw myself, and the doctor looked concerned, and so he turned to the nurse and shouted something, and she started grabbing things frantically off the tray.
Right.
And she dropped a vial that broke.
Yeah.
But another nurse ran out of the room and got another one, and then later they're like, dude, I dropped that shit. How do they know that?
Or even when they call in some specialist, those are the most interesting ones, where the guy's like, yeah, who was the guy that came in that had the monocle or whatever, like they see some person come in after they were dead.
Yeah.
That had never been in there before because it's some specialist or whatever, and that guy comes in and helps him revive him. But yeah, so there's this idea that there is some kind of brain activity that's taking place that is still happening even though the monitors show flatlining. And so I'm wondering if the over-sedation past flatline is actually quieting that activity, and that causes the jump start.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. I mean, when we talk brain waves, the thing that's specifically being measured is like a fired pulse, like a neuron in your body, right? So you've got the upward motion and then the spike and fall back down, which is a electrical signal being shot out. It's entirely possible that there is some other type of activity that occurs and we're just not testing for it, or it's at an amplitude so low that we're not picking it up. I mean, it's totally possible.
Right.
We know the more I learned about neurology, neurobiology, the more I realized that we literally know almost nothing about them.
That's what happens the more you learn about any subject.
Yeah, I guess that's
the more you learn about the collected knowledge of any subject the more you find out that we actually know pretty much almost nothing.
Yeah,
you have to be almost completely ignorant of a subject to think that we know a lot about it.
Why is the universe so weird like that?
All right. Thanks, Watcher. That was fascinating. Now I have hope. Just imagine, away from the strange medical mystery, just imagine waking up and being told you've been asleep for 30 years. Yeah. How Rip Van Winkle is that?
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy.
It's almost like time travel. It would feel like it. Because we had a traumatic accident, and and we go into the hospital, and then they're like, okay, we're gonna operate on you, and they knock you out, and then you wake up and you find out that you've been passed out for 3 days. That's weird.
Yeah.
And you're like, wow, it's been 3 days. They're like, yeah, the operation was 19 hours long, and then you were in the ICU for 2 days, and so I wake up and it's 3 days later, and I was already time traveled. I time traveled because it's just all I remember is being wheeled into the operation room, and then bam, 3 days later, I'm waking up somewhere else.
That's crazy.
So imagine that being 30 freaking years.
Yeah. Sir, you've been asleep for 30 years. Oh. Well, give me a freaking cup of coffee.
Yeah. And then I'm going to take a nap. All right. Thanks for that, Watcher. That was fascinating stuff. Okay. So back to ancientorigins.net. I had some of these articles that we didn't go through last time, but this is a new one, actually, that I want to... this one's fascinating. So Scottish professor links mysterious Pictish symbols and distant Gobekli Tepe signs.
Uh-huh.
The Picts were an ancient race of people who took a lot of selfies. No, I'm just... Picts. That was really bad. Okay. The ancient race of people who, from at least the 1st century AD, dominated the northern territories of what is known today as Scotland. In the works of Roman propaganda, they are savages. But refreshingly new findings over the last 2 years have informed us that they had a written language at least 1,700 years ago, and they were a highly developed culture. But now it's time for something completely different. They have bad jokes in their article. Now it's time for something completely different. Most famous for their geometric and stylized animal symbols, which they carved into standing stones and tattooed on their bodies, the original meanings of Picts symbols remains a mystery. But every year, it seems a different scientist adds a little more to our understanding of what was undoubtedly a rich and thriving Pictish culture. In 1999, William Arthur Cummins published The Picts and Their Symbols, providing a list of symbols ordered by how frequently they appear, upon which scholar Anthony Jackson presented the first serious interpretation of Pictish symbols, concluding that they were family crests in his 1984 book, The Symbol Stones of Scotland. But brace yourself for an Edinburgh University press release about the latest work of the controversial author Dr. Martin Sweatman. We need to get this guy on. And their School of Engineering claims they are zodiacal and astronomical symbols and draws parallels to the symbols of the 12,000-year-old site Gobekli Tepe in Turkey. Dr. Sweatman is a common target of the skeptical community because he openly endorses Graham Hancock's theories, and in his last book, Prehistory Decoded, he claimed that around 13,000 years ago, a lost civilization was wiped out, and that the ancestors of the people who built Gobekli Tepe in present-day southern Turkey had witnessed this catastrophe and erected the structure to commemorate the terrible event. See? How many times have I said it looks like a memorial?
Yeah.
Whether you buy into such theories or not, Edinburgh University certainly does. So let's have a look at what Dr. Sweatman claims with an open mind so that we don't throw out any potential babies with any potential bathwater. According to scholar William Arthur Cummins, the most repetitive Pictish symbol is the crescent and V rod, which according to Dr. Sweatman clearly represents something related to the moon, but he doesn't reveal what exactly. The next most common Pictish symbol is the double disc and Z-rod, which the engineer thinks probably represents the summer and or winter solstice. And he thinks the third most carved symbol, the Pictish elephant, likely represents the summer solstice constellation, which is Gemini. He goes so far to compare this Pictish symbol with the one from Pillar 43 at Gobekli Tepe. So there's the Pictish symbol, and there's the... Yeah, they kind of look alike.
Yeah.
Where the ibex is believed by some to represent Gemini. There is no doubting these two symbols are incredibly similar, which the professor believes represents the aquatic goat Capricornus. But many will say it's a leap of creative faith to say they represent the same thing. The Pictish horseshoe symbol is related to the handbag/sunset symbols carved at the top of Pillar 43 at Gobekli Tepe, and to the professor, this clearly represents an equinox or solstice. After comparing the disc and rectangle symbol, the fish, the eagle, and the serpent in Z-rod Pictish carvings to those at Gobekli Tepe, erected circa 10,000 BC, Sweatman refers to the serpent representing a meteor, keying directly into Hancock's ideas. Now, while the news as reported on the University of Edinburgh website is entitled, Dr. Martin Sweatman decodes ancient Pictish symbols, and the post claims... The Post claims the school's Dr. Martin Sweatman has decoded a system of Pictish symbols and revealed its link with other symbol systems used by ancient civilizations across the world. It is clear that the professor is preparing for criticism in his constant use of safe words. For example, something related to the moon probably represents the summer and or winter solstice and likely represents the summer solstice constellation. So yeah, He's using safe words. Probably, likely, maybe something. It seems the theory needs a fair bit more work before the grand claims of decipherment can be made, but you can check out Dr. Sweatman's findings so far here. So they gave a link there. That's... so we need to get that guy on the show. He's actually asked me if we can come on the show. So I'll get him on, yeah. But yeah, if they can connect those things to Pict symbols, that's...
Yeah, how old are the Pict symbols?
Like, not very old, according to standard model. 1,700 years. So Pictish is supposed to be in the AD, right?
Yeah.
That would be like, what, 300 AD? Something? 1,700 years old, right? Mm-hmm. Roughly. Yeah, 1st century AD. But so I know the Pict stones have been mysterious in Scotland for a long time, and they're very beautiful. They have these enormous standing stones, but they're beautifully flattened, and then they just have these crazy swirling deep cut designs that just cover the whole thing and make it look
that's awesome.
Freaking straight out of a fantasy story, dude.
Yeah.
Like this is one. God, this look at that thing.
Yeah.
So.
There's
okay.
One. Watch her put up there.
Yeah, that's the one in the picture here.
Yeah, that's awesome. I need one of those in my yard.
Yeah. Yeah, how do we get one of those? It does look like a bunch of astronomical stuff. There's the Serpent, and you can see like stars and gravity pulling like electrical universe stuff holding them together. But that's the Serpent in Z. See it?
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. Okay. So here we go. This is kind of continuing on what we were doing last week, which is human origin stuff. So, and we may need the Watcher. Watcher, you might need to come on to talk about some of this. Modern humans interbred with at least 5 archaic human groups is the headline. This is again from Ancient Origins, ancient-origins.net. Genetic analysis has revealed that the ancestors of modern humans has interbred with at least 5 different archaic human groups as they moved out of Africa and across Eurasia. While 2 of the archaic groups are currently known, the Neanderthals and their sister group, the Denisovans from Asia, the others remain unnamed and have only been detected as traces of DNA surviving in different modern populations. Island Southeast Asia appears to have been a particular hotbed of diversity. Published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, researchers from the University of Adelaide's Australian Centre for Ancient DNA have mapped the location of past mixing events by contrasting the levels of archaic ancestry in the genomes of present-day populations around the world. So each of us, this is a quote, each of us carry within ourselves the genetic traces of these past mixing events, says first author Dr. Joao Teixeira, I guess, Australian Research Council Research Associate at the University of Adelaide. These archaic groups were widespread and genetically diverse, and they survive in each of us. Their story is an integral part of how we came to be. For example, all present-day populations show about 2% of Neanderthal ancestry, which means that Neanderthal mixing with the ancestors of modern humans occurred soon after they left Africa, probably around 50,000 to 55,000 years ago, somewhere in the Middle East. But as the ancestors of modern humans traveled further east, they met with and mixed with at least 4 other groups of archaic humans. The island Southeast Asia was already a crowded place when what we call modern humans first reached the region just before 50,000 years ago, says Dr. Teixeira. At least 3 other archaic human groups appear to have occupied the area, and the ancestors of modern humans mixed with them before the archaic humans became extinct. Using additional information from reconstructed migration routes and fossil vegetation records, the researchers have proposed that there was a mixing event in the vicinity of southern Asia between the modern humans and the group they have named Extinct Hominin 1. So the next headline is Out of Africa Story. Well, this is a subheadline. Out of Africa Story isn't a simple one. Other interbreeding occurred with groups in East Asia, in the Philippines, the Sunda Shelf, which is the continental shelf that used to connect Java, Borneo, and Sumatra to mainland East Asia, and possibly near Flores in Indonesia. With another group they have named Extinct Hominin 2. We knew the story out of Africa wasn't a simple one, but it seems to be far more complex than we have contemplated. The island Southeast Asia region was clearly occupied by several archaic human groups, excuse me, probably living in relative isolation from each other for hundreds of thousands of years before the ancestors of modern humans arrived. The timing also makes it look like the arrival of modern humans was followed quickly by the demise of the archaic human groups in each area. Oh, here we go. Yep. So we spread out and wiped everyone out. This is what they're basically implying here.
Are they really implying that? I was thinking it was like, I don't know. I went a totally different direction.
It says
with
the
that.
timing makes it look like the arrival of modern humans was followed quickly by the demise of the archaic human groups in each area. To me, that's a clear implication. Like, yeah, we killed them all.
Okay.
And I know
might be
that's
right about that.
I know that's a theory that we were killing them all. So
What I was thinking of was like something was going down, which caused the Exodus originally, and then something else happened shortly thereafter that nearly wiped everybody out.
right. That's what I agree that's probably what happened, but they're to me clearly implying, and this is based on other stuff that I know about the standard model picture of that, everywhere we went, we were destroying ecosystems, killing everybody we
And
met.
mating with them first.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, you guys are hot, bone, 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 kill.
Yeah.
Basically, is what is the implication.
So I thought we were reading a story last week that was pushing the.
Yeah, clearly this guy hasn't gotten the memo.
Yeah, it was like 200,000 years ago that they actually left. After,
Right, yeah.
Like, maybe there was multiple.
Right. Yeah, so Gordon White in his
How do you pluralize Exodus? Exodus.
Exodai.
Exodes.
Hexodes. That's probably it. Yeah, so in Gordon White's book Star.Ships, he talks about this. That the current state of understanding now is that there have been multiple migrations that came out in waves, and then those completely failed.
Yeah.
And then later there was another one, right? So you have these pulses of people leaving
Migrating,
some area, and just let's go with Africa. So out of Africa, 200,000 years ago, there's a pulse of modern humans that come out. They meet possibly other hominids. They do a bunch of stuff, but no one really knows because they all die. So they found remnants of that guy's, one of those people's skulls in that cave in Greece. Then at 160,000 years, there's another pulse, and that one fails as well. But then 50,000 years ago, there's a pulse that succeeds, and we are the descendants of those people. That's the idea. That, in other words, the skull of that modern Homo sapiens that was found in Greece is not one of our ancestors because his migration attempt failed. His whole group, they all died.
Yep. Multiple exoduses. Thank you, Watcher.
Exoduses. But it's crazy that they're saying that, not only was there Neanderthals and Denisovans, but like 5 other or however many other archaic hominid groups.
And they're just labeling them with numbers.
Yeah,
They don't
like,
even have
this one's 1.
And how do they know that now? I missed that part of the story, I guess. Is it genetics?
Yeah, that there's genetics.
So the only remains they're finding are the remains in our own
right,
genes.
they have that, right. So the reason they're not named yet is because they haven't actually found any remains that they can connect those genes to. So like one day they'll find a tooth somewhere in Southeast Asia, and they'll name it after that cave that it was in, and now Southeast Asia, and then that will have that hominid will have a name, like Denisovans is named from Denisova cave in Siberia.
It's just crazy to me that they can identify a piece of the genetic code and say, this was another
This is
hominid.
not ours. Yeah. Yeah.
That's freaking awesome.
Yeah.
God, I gotta learn more about this twisted snakes. Why are they so hard to understand?
Yeah, so it says, okay, so 5 different archaic human groups, including Neanderthals and Denisovans. So that means there's 3 unnamed ones.
Yeah.
The others remain unnamed and have only been detected as traces of DNA surviving in different modern populations.
Yeah. Enlils, Enkis, and the Nephils.
And the Watchers. Yeah. Oh, wait. No, the Watchers didn't do that. Yeah. Freaking long heads. Okay. Let's see where we at here. Okay, so now we're back to teeth. This is Kyle's favorite subject. Oh, wait. We need to take a break. Wow.
That's true. Yeah.
Okay, well, we're going to talk about teeth next segment.
Snake teeth.
Continuing the tradition of mispronouncing ethnic wards on Brothers of the Serpent podcast. Yeah, I don't know how to say stuff. So,
I was trying to think of something to say, but I couldn't do it.
Brothers of the Serpent. All right, let's get the Watcher back on and talk about some of this genetic stuff.
I want to understand
Hopefully I
the
don't,
double helix.
Yeah, how do they know when they're looking through the human genome that there are pieces that don't come from Homo sape? How do you know that if you start out with looking at it and it's already in there?
All right. So a lot of technological terms here, very science specific. I hope I don't put the emphasis on the wrong syllable with them. But we'll see how my pronunciation works out. Basically, what it comes down to is you have, as you go backwards through history, right? Every time you find an older and older genetic sample, there are two things that you can test: either mitochondrial DNA,
Yeah,
which comes from the mother, or
nuclear.
there's small segments of the Y chromosome that you can test. It's not as reliable, but you can test it to determine male lineage. So
That's paternal
almost-
DNA, nuclear DNA. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, almost exclusively what is used, though, is going to be mitochondrial DNA. The reason for that is it's a much shorter overall length of code. So instead of having to go over hundreds of billions of base pairs, I'm probably exaggerating that number, it's like tens of billions. Instead of having to do that, you're sticking in like the 100 million range,
Okay.
right? So it's a much smaller length of code you have to look at. Secondly, the organization of it is very specific to mitochondrial function. The mitochondria are the power plants of your cell. Basically, they create energy that your cell uses to do different stuff. So
Very technical.
in that mitochondrial DNA, you can see certain genes, like, sequences of base pairs that are novel to a generation. Okay, so when you look back, like you look at this mitochondrial DNA and you keep going back, it's going to be almost identical all the way through,
Yeah.
because there's no diversity in it. It's not like nuclear DNA, where you have two chromosomes coming together and there's mixing and matching, and it comes together and then bam, there you go. So in certain populations, when you see like, oh, their mitochondrial DNA is from here, right? Because that's the earliest known occurrence of that exact copy
Okay.
of the mitochondrial DNA. So when you go back, you find a genetic sample and it's got like this sequence of code and it's set up this way. You look at it, and if you think of it like a picture, you're like, oh, so that's where that picture came from. and it carries forward almost unchanged.
So the locationing is based on where they've got the sample from. So they're like, okay, I see a match in this piece of this mitochondrial DNA that matches a sample that we've already like looked at that comes from a specific area, and so they're like, that must be from there. Is that what you're is that kind of what you're saying?
The problem with it, and the problem with a lot of these ancestry tests, is, well, what if they were from somewhere else, tens of thousand years before that? We just don't have any remains that we can use.
Yeah,
dream shattered.
So you're saying that
I don't have a whole lot of faith in the dating methods already.
right.
So, if they find a sample and they're using contextual dating or stratigraphic or
Yeah.
whatever type of dating, and they get it wrong by thousands of years, maybe just 1,000 years, and then they find another sample that's somewhere else, they're like, okay, the line goes from this area to that area, but they might be swapped. I mean, what's the, there's the error range, right?
Yeah.
What do they call it? What's it called? Margin of error.
Yeah.
Of dating. And so you're like, well, it could have come from here and gone to there, or it could have been the other way around.
Right.
So that, I mean,
And then you got your Marco Polos who, like, you find their remains in China, but they
yeah.
came from wherever, I don't know where Marco Polo was from.
yeah. But assuming that overall we have fairly accurate dating, then you could, based on the samples that we found, consider, like, assuming that there's fairly accurate dating, you can sort of get a direction that those people traveled, or that DNA line, lineage, whatever, traveled across the earth. That's pretty cool. Watcher, thank you. I was reading America Before, and I'm just like, what? How is this? I don't understand this. So that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, and one of the other things about mitochondrial DNA that's unique, it mutates at a faster rate than nuclear DNA, because mitochondrial DNA doesn't really have a way to fix itself. It doesn't have the
It doesn't have
chemicals
self-correction.
present and the little functional groups that are there to repair it. So that's another way. Overall it changes much, much, much more slowly than nuclear DNA.
Yeah.
But per mother to child, it will be passed along as it exists at that time. So through those small mutations, you can also trace a line, which will, give you an idea of the flow of the mitochondrial DNA through time.
And
by the way, I'm so used to being in the chat window that I totally put that Marco Polo was Italian there, but I couldn't have said it here. So,
I heard you typing. I was like, what is he saying?
So this is another thing that's really fascinating. This is a little bit off topic, but the idea of, like, this ancient Sumerian idea of, like, the best pairing of, like the line of succession.
Yeah.
Where it's like a true-born son marries his half-sister by a different mother.
Right.
Yeah, they have like a breeding pair through a family. It's like the third cousin's second daughter, something. And if you breed with them, you will make the perfect genetic specimen out of your family line or something.
Well, the idea was that, if I remember correctly, that it was
A half-sister.
from a different mother, same father.
Same father, different mother.
So they knew something about the fact that the mitochondrial DNA needed to be different.
Yeah.
Or was it the other way around?
No, that's right.
So
Yeah.
different mother, same father.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I guess it's these types
Well,
of...
yeah, I mean, if you would have the mitochondrial DNA from the pairing of your mother with your father, and then this half sister would have different
Yeah, the mitochondrial DNA from a different mother.
and mitochondria. That's actually, yeah. All right.
and then I think there's something about like wasps or many insects do the same thing naturally. Like they choose the same type of mating. If possible,
Ah,
they will often choose that same setup where it's like
Well, and I mean, the other thing is that so the male will pass along a Y chromosome to a son. So you're diversifying. He gets the Y chromosome from his father, the X from his mother. So
and that's
the X
nuclear, right? That's nuclear DNA you're talking
nuclear
about.
DNA, right?
Yeah.
That's in the sex chromosomes that are passed across. So if you do it that way, any genetic inheritance from the father that is passed to the son is present, and then you have the father's genetic variance that's put into the daughter, because there's a recombination. Essentially, at a fertilization, everything splits apart, kind of throws itself together, and then reforms with a mix of both traits from both sides.
Yeah.
So you would have the father present in both, and then no crossing of the maternal DNA. So it actually would increase the amplitude of the genes passed from the father to his grandkids.
Right.
yeah. So we work on a farm, and like we have sheep, and the method is like you pull all the males that are born out of the herd. All the females can stay in because the main there's one male sheep. I mean, you can have multiple, but they need to be from different genetic lines,
Yeah.
right? But you can have this one male and a bunch of females, and that male will then later reproduce with his own daughters.
Yeah.
But you don't want the males that are his offspring to reproduce
With
with
those
his
daughters.
own daughters.
Right.
So you pull the males out of the herd.
Yeah.
That's really weird, like the way it's, and it's like,
Yeah.
this is how long ago was this developed, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's interesting to me to find that we find like this, I guess, genetic understanding of,
so far back.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like the fact that the I guess the genes from the mother don't change over, like,
Yeah. Well, I think he was saying that the mitochondrial can mutate faster.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, they're very specific, and they're passed down like exactly,
Yeah.
or something like that. And whereas you were saying the nucleic or whatever just gets all,
Yeah. It does a recombination.
I still don't understand it. I'll stop
Wasn't
talking
one of
about it.
Enki's wives his half sister?
What's that?
Enlil's, or so Anu had that. That was how Enki was not. Enki was, even though he was the firstborn of Anu, Enlil was the actual heir because Enki was the son of like Anu's first love and mistress, but she wasn't.
But she was not like his half sister.
his half sister, which made the proper line. So Enlil was the product of that, which made him.
And this was the same situation, I think, with Set and Isis and Osiris. Like when I think,
Oh, yeah.
when Osiris took Isis Isis was both their half sister,
Yeah, that's right.
and because he made the union with her, then he became, I guess, his offspring became the next
Horus. Yeah,
the
became
next
the next one.
line of succession instead of Set's son.
Right.
So the line of succession would have passed to Horus instead of,
Whoever Set's son was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Place.
and they, I think that was the same for that story, but
Yeah, it was close anyway.
So I found that Enki had more than one wife, but one of them was Ninkursag.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Ninhursag. Yeah.
And that was his half sister.
Ninhursag.
Yeah, that's a crazy name. I don't envy you guys having to do this on the fly on the air. I was looking at that while you were talking, and I was like, Ninka what?
Ninkum what?
Okay,
So,
so
real quick, why is it called a base pair, and what is that?
Okay, so base pairs come from nitrogenous bases, which are the chemicals that are the links in DNA. So you have a carbon nitrogen backbone, right? That makes the helix on the outside.
Okay.
So that's sort of like the skeleton of the molecule.
And then the little bars that cross the helix are
Those are your base pairs.
Oh,
and
okay.
there's 4 of them. They are cytosine, guanine, adenine.
So there's
God,
each one of those little ladder rungs is 4 different things. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Well, it can be one
And
of
so
4
it's 2
things.
pairs. Is that what?
Right. They only bond thymine. Oh man, I should have just said it. I had it right. Anyway, so they can only bond with one specific other base pair. Like cytosine will only bond with guanine. Adenine will only bond with thymine. So as you're going along a chain of DNA, like you'll see, usually the way it'll be written out, if they're like just giving you a sequence of base pairs, you'll have like A C T G A T C C C T A G.
right, yeah, they're giving you the initials of the base pairs.
Right. It's implied that the mirror strand of that would have the opposite base pair.
Ah,
because that's a cleaved segment of DNA. So you've got those. On the other side, you'd have the corresponding letters. But this is why I've told you guys before that DNA is like binary. You either have a 1 or a 0 because it's either AT or CG. There's no other option.
wow.
And when I realized that, I just sat and stared at a wall for a very completely blew my mind. It was like one of those moments. It was Randall Carlson Draco style. I was just like, oh my God.
Yeah, it's a bunch of
So
ones.
our DNA is binary code, basically what you're
Yes.
saying.
I mean,
Enormous long strings of binary ones and zeros.
yeah. I mean, we are the product of the compiling.
That's interesting because it's like a physical. Like, how would you take an enormously long string of ones and zeros and then wrap it up into a tight little package? In
Just-
terms of geometric.
Yeah, you must have the double helix.
Yeah, that's right. You must have this double helix.
I just love imagining that scientist. Like, it just I don't know why, but for some reason I just kind of imagined this whole situation in my mind of the guy, like he's trying to figure out what's going on, and then suddenly he realizes a geometric shape,
Yeah.
and it just blew his mind.
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
And I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
You know, that you wouldn't normally think of that. Like, you're really trying to figure out what's going on with whatever this stuff is that is the design of our entire
Yeah.
body, macro shape, form, and that he figures out a geometric shape, and that is what makes it all make sense
Yeah.
to him in some way. I don't know why that is.
Yeah, it is cool. But again, I always remember that Rupert Sheldrake points out that there is an enormous heritability problem in genetics. The missing heritability problem is what it's called, all capital letters. That like you can take you could take the a measuring tape and go to any group of parents, and they did this with like 30,000 parent groups in England. They both measured their heights with just with tape measure, but they also got genetic samples. And then using both different things, but like measuring the heights with a tape measure and using the genetic samples, they tried to estimate how tall the children were.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They were like 90% accurate using the tape measure data. Using the genetic code, they were like 15% accurate. So there's this like enormous like 75 to 80% missing heritability problem. Where they're like, okay, so with a $5 tape measure, I can go in and get far better data on what
Yeah.
the children are going to be like from the parents than I can with their DNA.
Yeah.
So
and
what's
is that more a function of the fact that we just don't understand the DNA yet?
Yeah.
rather than
But
the tape measure is an actual better tool for measure.
Yeah. Right. But he goes into it in more detail, pointing out that like, so
Yes.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, jump back
So-
in.
Part of it definitely has to do in my mind with the fact that we don't understand DNA as well as we
tape
think we
measure.
do in a lot of cases. But there's also the fact that what needs to be remembered is that the DNA itself is like a blueprint, right? So I've got a blueprint for a house, and I decided to build the house out of cheap particle board. How long does the house last? If I'm going to build it out of, poured concrete through cinder blocks, how long does the house last? With something like height, you've got to remember that based on the DNA that's there, you have a nutrition factor, you have a factor of a lot of other things that are
Environmental.
right.
Yeah.
So
Well, wait a minute though. Like then
the
that would
DNA
those
could-
same things would be a problem with the tape measure. If there was a nutrition factor that was really big, you couldn't tell from the parent's height whether the child was had good nutrition and grew. Like in other words, there is a major correlation between the height of the parents and the height of their children across the generation. That's the point of the tape measure study.
well,
But
right,
I think what
but-
his point is that they've inherited their genes from this massive lineage of people that could have
Exactly.
been much shorter than them hundreds of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But because they are in a higher nutrition, then they end up, over.
Oh, okay.
So I'm just saying. I mean, maybe I'm wrong
I mean,
about this. But
that's pure extrapolation on my part. It's just there's a lot of factors that aren't taken into account by even geneticists when they're like, oh, yes, well, I found the gene for this, and so it's going to represent this. And then they look at it. So you have a genotypic expression and a phenotypic expression, right? So, like, genotypical expression would say somebody has a hetero or a homozygous, which is two possible traits. Like if we were going with hair color, they've got one gene for brown hair, one gene for blonde hair. Brown's dominant over blonde. They have brown hair. Their genotypic ratio, though, is that they've got both.
Yeah.
Phenotypic expression is they have brown hair,
Right.
but their genotypic is that they're a carrier basically for something that is dormant.
so you're
which would
saying
be
you can
why-
have genes for short and tall.
Yes,
Yeah.
potentially.
Right. So in the study, they understood this, and Sheldrick was pointing out, he was like, so that the scientists doing the study identified, I think like something like 40. Don't quote me on the number, but it was, 30 or 40 or something like that. Different genomic expressions that they thought had to do with height. Okay. And using those, they were, like I said, they very badly predicted the height of the children. They were way off compared to the tape measure thing.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know what their predictive method was using like the raw DNA that they were looking at. Like, how did they come up with which genes? I mean, basically, I guess if anything, that study points out that we do not have any kind of concept of what the genetic code actually represents.
Right,
or what
how it expresses.
right, like they're
But Sheldrake
much less
also,
accurate
yeah,
because they guessed wrong.
Sheldrake also points out that the genetic code codes for proteins.
Which is also very true.
So so going back to your blueprint model, if I'm looking at the genetic code, what I'm basically getting is instructions for how to make the cinder blocks, not how to build the house out
that's
of them.
much more accurate.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's another thing where like when people try to come up with like genetic sequences that are going to show this genetic sequence right here means that somebody is going to be a paranoid schizophrenic or bipolar. I always look at that and I'm like, no, it won't ever. Stop.
Yeah. Right. That's what I'm saying. So like, and I trust Sheldrake on this. He's a freaking Cambridge biologist, PhD, and he's been studying this stuff his whole life. And he's like, look, the genetic codes for proteins, which is like getting the building blocks. It tells you how to build the pieces of the house, but not how to build the house itself. And this is why the missing heritability problem exists, because they were expecting to get house blueprints when they're just getting how to make the materials to build the house.
Yeah.
But he says, he's like, so you looking at the materials that the house is going to be built out of, you can infer certain things about the house. Like, for example, that it's going to be gray because it's made out of cinder blocks, right? Or whatever.
Right.
But you're not going to figure out where the bathroom is and what the plumbing looks like and how many rooms there are. I mean, you may be able to, but you could sort of guess by looking at how many materials they are, what the square footage might be, but you aren't going to get the actual construction of the house. So.
Yeah, like there are things that are going to be predictable. But again, they will all be with proteins like melanin. You can determine roughly how dark a person's skin and complexion will be because that is directly determined by a protein.
Right. Exactly.
But aside from that, they stretch a lot with.
So my question is how much does the mitochondrial DNA inform that kind of thing as opposed to the nuclear DNA?
Mitochondrial DNA is exclusively relevant to the mitochondria.
Oh, okay.
So there's no transcription of anything that ever leaves outside of that. Whereas nuclear DNA is going to be the transcription site and the creation for all proteins going everywhere.
Oh, okay. So mitochondrial DNA is a way of tracing ancestry, but it doesn't inform body types or phenotypes.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Like you could have an identical twin and they could have completely different mitochondrial DNA. I don't know how that would happen, but you could. It would not cause any visible difference between the two of them.
Oh.
Because, I mean, if you're twins, you'd have to have the same mom. So forget it.
Yeah.
We're just going to let it go. All right.
You're just saying that since there's no phenotypical information coming from the mitochondrial DNA, that you could have twins with totally different
So do they know what it does?
Well, actually, okay, so there is one thing that will affect metabolic disorders can be present in mitochondrial DNA.
Huh.
But that's because the metabolism of energy in your body is directly reliant upon
cell structure and function.
Oh, yeah. You were saying that that's the energy source of the cell, right? Okay,
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
So you can't have metabolic disorders. Normally, metabolic disorders are going to have to do with hormones,
That's the power plant.
and thyroid and stuff. But yeah, it can happen.
Yeah. Don't jumble up the plans for the power plant. Bad things happen. Man, that's fascinating.
Yeah. See, I knew we needed to have this conversation. This is why we have the Watcher, people.
Tell me more.
Yeah.
I want to know more about this power plant.
Let's just keep talking about it. Like, this is why we have the Watcher. The guy, like, we always keep him in the background. We never let him talk, but he actually knows his shit.
So tell me why are there, and I don't even know what this is, but why are there all kinds of problems when there's inbreeding?
Right. So what ends up happening is recessive traits, traits that you have to have. So usually when you're representing genes, you'll have like a capital letter and a lowercase letter, right? For example, color blindness. Color blindness it has to be recessive dominant or a recessive homozygous. You have to have two lowercase b's. If you end up with an uppercase B, you'll carry it, but you won't express it. What ends up happening with inbreeding is you have a greatly increased likelihood
of having matched lowercase.
Exactly. Because if you have a carrier that is, so like a father who is both capital B's and a mom who is a capital B, little b, she will have 1/4 of her children will come out with a lowercase b. Right? So she has 8 kids. Well, a son and a daughter end up having a kid together. They both have lowercase b's. Now, half the kids will be colorblind. They have 4 kids. 2 of their kids are colorblind. If those 2 kids have a kid, all their children will be colorblind.
Right. Whereas if you're mixing with somebody, if the son finds a girlfriend who's not from his family, she will have a bunch of lowercase and he'll have a bunch of lowercase, but they're more likely to be different. Is that what?
Right.
Okay.
The Romanovs and hemophilia.
Yeah.
That's how it happened. Hemophilia is like color blindness. Because those are X-linked. Sorry. because they are X-linked, and a son will only get an X chromosome from his mother, there's an incredibly high likelihood that if the mom is a carrier, the son will have hemophilia or color blindness.
That's why it's a
Different mother.
a different mother in the ancient succession tradition.
Holy hell.
So what?
Yep.
So this is what I'm wanting to know. What, like, I find it strange that was preferred, that there was the same father, different mother. Why would you not want just a different father? Like, I mean, I understand that there's like this weird idea of succession or keeping the family blood, the bloodlines, et cetera, in
because you're trying to propagate the line of the father.
I know that, but I'm wondering if that tradition actually came from a more scientific understanding of reproduction, or the best possible method for the best possible reproduction.
Yeah. Okay.
This is what,
So with
and the fact that these animals do it.
Yeah.
with a lot of debilitating genetic disorders, the father will exhibit his phenotypic expression will be of that disorder. That's why there's a shit ton more colorblind males than there are females.
Okay, so then that makes sense that if you have a male
Who
that
doesn't
is
have
royalty and he's like just freaking awesome in every way, they're like, use that guy as much as possible
Right.
to reproduce.
Express his traits
Yeah.
as far down the line as possible.
Okay.
the mother can be a carrier. She may not express it. So you want to make sure that you've got two different moms if these kids are going to breed, because that way you've got diversity there. And if one of them's a carrier, the other one's not going to have it.
Yeah.
I see.
So there may even be an aspect of it to where like they trace the lineage of the mom, right? The two different mothers. So if you go back and she's got like a great uncle who's colorblind, they're like, nah, get her out of here.
Yeah.
Because she could be a carrier of that. But if you go back the whole way through her lineage and no one ever has been colorblind, no one ever has had hemophilia, no one's ever had Marfans or any of these things, you go, okay. And you find another one over on the other side. It decreases the likelihood of a debilitating genetic disorder creeping in.
Phenotypically.
If the father has one of these things, you will see it right away. It's there. He's not going to be able to carry it without expressing it. Now, that's only with X-linked disorders that are on the sex chromosomes, which it's like chromosome 16. I don't know. Let me look it up. But that's why. If you have a male specimen, he will show the negative trait. It's very rare for them to be able to be a carrier of something.
That's freaking wild, man.
So how do they know this? Like, I guess the standard model would say, well, you can observe it in animal husbandry, right?
Yeah. I mean, I guess you definitely, if you're breeding horses or whatever and you're trying to get the best traits, they must have tried all kinds of things.
Yeah.
I just when I learned this about the succession stuff in Sumerian texts, I'm like, is there a ancient knowledge, that had been passed down to them?
It seems to me
by
like the kind
the
of thing for them
Anunnaki
that
or
would be, like,
whatever.
quant stuffed.
Sorry? Say again?
It seems to me like that would be the kind of thing for them that was like quant stuffed, right? Like they saw the Anunnaki doing it.
This
the
is what-
Anunnaki understood it.
Yeah.
Right.
And
That's what I'm
they're
saying.
just
That in their own texts, they're claiming this is how the Anunnaki did it, and this was the best situation.
Right. So they were
for-
doing it ritually without a deeper understanding, but
Yeah.
it came from a deeper understanding from
That's what I was assuming. So
Yeah.
I'm like, that's really interesting, man. I'm not suggesting you guys try this. I'm just saying.
Hold on, wait. Let's do it for science, people.
Do it for science.
Could you imagine?
All you
Mom
snake bros
coming
out there, go find some snake sisters. I'm not really
Mom
saying
coming
that.
down
I'm
to
not
dinner.
actually saying that. Delete
down
that.
and turning to the kid and being like, "Son, did you tell your dad you want him to have a You want to have a sister, but he has to make it with the neighbor? Uh-huh. God.
Shouldn't have gone there. Let's move on.
New Snake Bros Snake Force mission. No. For science. Let's do it for science.
Oh, man.
I think with that we should take a break. We should do that. I need a freaking snack.
You need a snake? Snake Bros, Snake Force, doing their best to keep the Enlils of the world out of the line of succession. Welcome back, folks. Final segment. Yeah, it's been going by pretty fast.
Yeah.
Damn it, Watcher. That's some fascinating stuff, man.
Yep.
I still don't understand any of it. But thanks.
All right, so we're just gonna change the subject here. We did this on the last podcast too. Like we talked about serious human origins, genetics, and everything, and we got to the end, and you're like, "I'm gonna change the subject to space."
That's right. Oh man, I love talking about space.
Yeah, so I'm gonna change the subject to something else. 660,000 sign up to take Area 51 by storm and see the aliens.
Yes.
This is going to be a short segment anyway, so I just want to...
I thought it was up to like 1.5 million.
It probably is. This was written... this is posted the 13th of July.
Okay, I got a new one.
As of today, there are almost 660,000 people who have signed up to attend a Facebook event on September 20th. What's all the fuss about? They are mostly joking about a proposed quote-unquote plan to get inside the heavily guarded Area 51 military installation. The event is called Storm Area 51. They can't stop all of us. And it jokingly tells people... We will all meet up at the Area 51 Alien Center tourist attraction and coordinate our entry. If we Naruto run, we can move faster than their bullets. Let's see them aliens. And if you wonder what Naruto running is, just look it up. Naruto run. It's Naruto is an anime.
Yeah.
And like whenever the main character Naruto runs really fast, his arms sort of fly behind him because he's running so fast. And he's like, right? And he's faster than bullets or whatever. It's just goofy. There are certainly people out there who are curious to see what Area 51 holds, but if you hadn't guessed it already, this event isn't going to provide them that knowledge. As CNET concisely states, it's not going to happen. Unfortunately, the event is fake. Fortunately, the memes are real. In an instance of the internet unifying over a key issue of our time, and the memes are flowing in for it, and they just have Go look up Storm Area 51 memes. They are freaking hilarious. Despite the tongue-in-cheek nature of the event, there is some concern that people may actually go through with it. U.S. Air Force spokeswoman Laura McAndrews said officials were aware of the Facebook event and warned that before anyone should consider it, they should remember, quote, Area 51 is an open training range for the U.S. Air Force, and we would discourage anyone from trying to come into the area where we train American armed forces. The U.S. Air Force always stands ready to protect America and its assets. In other words, we will mow your asses down with everything we've got. For decades, Area 51 has had a strong reputation in alien conspiracy circles. It was only confirmed to exist as an aircraft testing facility in 2013, further fueling the mysterious nature of the site and lending credence to the idea that the U.S. government was hiding something, i.e., aliens for the conspiracy theorists interested in the same. The super-secret military installation is located in southern Nevada at Groom Lake, and access to the site is forbidden to civilians. However, as NDTV points out, the area around it is filled with alien-themed motels, museums, and restaurants, reflecting on the popular suggestion that Area 51 is where the U.S. military has housed aliens and their spacecraft. NDTV also reports that the CIA has since published information about test flights that took place there, and the alien aspects of many of those theories have been debunked. As reported in a previous Ancient Origins article, in the 43 years since the National UFO Reporting Center began keeping track, 104,947 have been reported, including historical events back to the beginning of the 20th century. The majority of sightings occur in the United States, though Canada, Australia, and the Nordic countries also have significant numbers of unidentified flying object sightings. That same article explains that, quote, the oldest recorded sighting of an unidentified flying object took place in 1440 BC. The incident was documented by the royal scribe of an Egyptian pharaoh. Before the modern era, UFOs were also recorded by ancient Greeks, Romans, Indians, Chinese, Japanese, Mexicans, and more. These sightings cannot be as readily explained as airplanes or fireworks.
Yeah.
And they have a picture of the classic woodcut by Hans Glasser, documenting what some people interpret as an aerial battle between UFOs.
That's awesome.
One of the most interesting ancient cases of a UFO sighting comes from the Thule Papyrus. I think I'm saying that right. This document claims to report an odd event which occurred during the 18th dynasty around 1480 BC. One popular translation of the text, as provided by Prince Boris de Raschowitz, says, in the year 22, third month of winter, 6th hour of the day, the scribes of the House of Life found it was a circle of fire that was coming in the sky. Though it had no head, the breadth of its mouth had a foul odor. Its body, 1 rod long, which is about 150 feet, and 1 rod large. It had no voice. The hearts became confused by it. Then they laid themselves on the bellies, and then they went to the king to report it. His Majesty ordered has been examined as to all which is written in the papyrus rolls of the House of Life. His Majesty was meditating upon what happened. Now, after some days passed over these things, lo, they were more numerous than anything. They were shining in the sky more than the sun to the limits of the 4 supports of heaven. Powerful was the position of the fire circles. The army of the king looked on, and his Majesty was in the midst of it. It was after supper. Thereupon they, i.e. the fire circles, went up higher, directed to the south. Fishes and volatiles fell down from the sky. It was a marvel never occurred since in the foundation of this land, caused his Majesty to be brought incense to pacify the hearth. What happened in the book of the House of Life to be remembered for all of eternity.
That's pretty crazy.
So they saw crazy stuff in the sky. It was freaking people out. The people went to the king, and some of his military also reported it. Then they all came outside and watched it, and it started to rain fish.
And body parts.
Volatiles. Which not body parts. I was assuming they were explosive, or bitumen. And then all the circles, and there were so many of them in the sky, and they were brighter than the sun. And then they all took off towards the south very quickly, and then everyone got out incense and did a whole bunch of rituals to cleanse everything because they were like, WTF.
And they laid prostrate on their bellies.
That's right. They had rent their clothes and covered themselves in ashes. But obviously odd things have been seen in the sky since then and much more recently. The Independent reports that, quote, the Pentagon provided a very real classified briefing to members of Congress about reported encounters by U.S. Navy pilots with unidentified aircraft, some of which were said to have no visible engines and could reach hypersonic speeds. Earlier this year, a number of pilots reported seeing the objects on almost a daily basis from the summer of 2014 to March 2015 while flying Navy jets off of the East Coast. Some of the encounters were captured on video and led the Navy to announce it had updated the way pilots were to formally report the incidents. According to NDTV, in 2017, the Pentagon confirmed the existence of a $22 million government program to analyze, quote, anomalous aerospace threats, unquote, aka UFOs. All right, what do you got? I like that article because first it talks about the goofy Area 51 thing, but then it goes into say like, hey, there are aliens somewhere. Even the pharaohs saw them.
Yeah, this other article does kind of the same thing. They talked about, the
Well, let's hear it.
what the Navy's doing with the UFO stuff. But I just wanted to point out that anybody planning to show up there in Naruto run into Area 51, it's 2.9 million acres.
Yeah.
Good luck finding anything.
Yeah.
I mean,
Area 51 is an enormous place.
2.9 million acres. I mean, we worked on these ranches. Like one of these ranches we worked on is like 600 acres, and we worked on it for a year, and didn't even begin to cover all of the ground on this
not even
place.
close.
And we explored it regularly.
Yeah. Had to as part of the job. Had to do circles through the woods to look for fire.
So yeah. I mean, it's like
It's like they can't stop us all. Yes, they can.
yes, they can. Yeah, the headline of this article was that the Air Force has what is it? Oh yeah, Air Force warns against storming Area 51 as Facebook event hits 1.5 million attendees.
Wow. Watcher, you need to sign up.
So the quote from Laura McAndrews of the Air Force spokesman, and this one is the Nevada Test and Training Range is an area where the Air Force tests and trains combat aircraft. As a matter of practice, we do not discuss specific security measures, but any attempt to illegally access military installations or military training areas is dangerous. To say the least.
Yeah. So I'm in the Discord chat for Grimerica a lot. It's fun in there. And we were all talking about this the other day, and I was like, they're going to bring out the poop gun. That's how you stop it. You know, non-lethal measures. And this is a weapons testing range. People are talking about rubber bullets. I'm like, no, it's going to be the poop ray. You're just
You can't Naruto run with poop in your pants.
Right.
After that, then they start hitting you with the rubber bullets because you can't dodge them.
That's right. Go online and look at the plans. People have drawn up, like they've got, overhead views of Google Earth, and they've got these plans showing arrows where the Naruto runners are and like where all the different people types that are going to be there. And they've got this plan out. It's freaking awesome. The memes are fantastic, if nothing else.
But it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah.
I mean,
you just can't telegraph something like this. It has to be, you're telling the military you're going to be there, you're going to die. Or you're going to be stopped.
I don't know if they would really do it. Like, would they start mowing people down?
No. I mean, you're going to be stopped.
Yeah.
They've got weapons that can non-lethally stop you.
Yeah. I was thinking that if it got serious enough to where, I mean, literally if 1.5 million people start to move from all different areas.
Right. They're going to see it.
They'll just be like, close those roads.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shut down that. Don't allow any flights into that airport.
Yeah. So the Watcher is saying that 2.9 million acres is roughly equivalent to 57,420,000 ranch-style 3-bedroom, 2-bath houses.
Good luck exploring those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's
any facility is probably like miles from whatever gate you have to go through.
Right. Yeah. Well, there's not even fencing. There's just signs that are out in the desert that say like restricted military, whatever. And then there's the camo dudes is what they call them. If you go look at any of the conspiracy guys who have been looking at Area 51 forever, they call them camo dudes. The guys who are out there in the SUVs and like, so some guy's up there and he's up on a ridge and he's got his telescope lens set up and he's looking at it and he's taking pictures of dudes who are looking at him with telescopic lens in some giant military SUV. And they call them camo dudes.
That's freaking awesome.
Yeah.
I see them. They're looking at me already.
Yeah. They are already looking at you when you see them.
Yeah.
Whatever you think about the U.S. military, you have to admit that they have a lot of really, really badass stuff, and they know what they're doing. So
I guess the Watcher is suggesting here that Mark Zuckerberg is sponsoring the Area 51 raid to free his dad, Commander Data,
from captivity. They got two pictures of them side by side, and you can tell the paternal expression.
That's right.
You can see the phenotype has been passed down.
They must have given that robot some Ambien.
Yeah. All right. What do we got here? We went way over on time.
Yeah, we're right on time.
We're right at the end here. because that was the last one I was going to do. Is just ended on a lighter note there. But I also like all the Ancient Origins just comes through with the facts about alien or sightings in the sky at the end of the article, which is great.
Yeah.
So, all right. I think it's a wrap.
Heck yeah. You can get a hold of us at brothersoftheserpent@gmail.com. Visit the website, brothersoftheserpent.com.
Get your snake skins.
Yeah. Go ahead. Take over.
I didn't mean to interrupt. Keep going.
You guys know the drill.
Yeah.
Donate to the Pyramid Scheme.
Yep. Patreon.com/Brothers of the Serpent. Or the Pyramid Scheme on the website.
Give us reviews. Thanks for all the reviews, everyone.
Yes. It's helping a lot.
Appreciate it. We love the emails too.
Yep. Send us stuff. If you want to send us snail mail 1-up boxes, get a hold of us at the email and I'll give you the P.O. box.
Send us straight to pyramids or send pyramids straight to us.
Yes. We would love to have a collection of stone pyramids in this tangent cube. We have the first one here. It's really awesome. Freaking beautiful.
It's one millicubit in size.
Yeah. So History Shift, he makes all of our YouTube videos. You can follow him on Twitter at History Shift. You can find his blog, historyshift.blogspot.com, where he details his explorations in Montana looking for dolmens and glacial erratics and busting people who are doing stuff illegally on public property. It's great. He's busting them again. He got them busted again today. So follow that saga, historyshift.blogspot.com. Follow him on Twitter at historyshift. He makes all of our YouTube videos, so you can find us on YouTube if you want to. The pictures are there. When I've posted pictures for the shows, he has put the pictures in the videos. He just posted our version of the Swapcast with Grimerica, where he took the video and timed it, synced it up to our version of the podcast. So you can watch that. Very well done. Also, Henry Hablack, who sent us tons of great artwork that Kyle has posted up in the Tangent Cube. You can follow him at hhablack on Instagram. And he has a website, hermetica.bigcartel.com.
And if you were listening to the last episode where Russ didn't know what that that website was,
'Cause we didn't
just refer to this one.
That's right. So I want to make a request of you. Don't use the normal bumper music. Play that Sphinx one.
Okay.
Yeah, so I want everybody to listen to this song. Kyle's going to play the whole thing for the end. And kind of, it's the lyrics at the beginning are from the perspective of the Great Sphinx.
That's right.
And it's talking about procession. And just listen to the lyrics. It's really fucking awesome. So this is actually coming out on the next $50 Dynasty album.
Nope.
No? It's not part of procession?
No.
How is that possible?
We already had everything.
Oh, man.
I don't know.
Dream shattered.
It should be. Yeah.
Maybe you can release it as a single.
But we can see we're having a problem here because we can only have 12 songs.
Yeah. So release it as a single with that because it belongs there. It's freaking ridiculous.
It's the 13th sign.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. I want to play this song for the end, and it's a Snake Bro song. So the lyrics are coming from the perspective of the Great Sphinx itself is the one talking. So
It's kind of a lullaby.
yeah,
It's pretty cool.
very cool song.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah.
All right, folks.
Yep.
Thank all of you. Love you.
Yep.
Always have, always will.
Marry your half sister. Do it for science. Good night, Itamu. Get back to work.
Gone are the days when I was young. All was a garden then. The stars but they will come around again. You'll be as old as I am now, and dust return to the wind. Lo and behold, I am the question of